That was notes 1. Then notes 2 and notes 3 were about our house. And we are on notes 4, financing our education. Okay. So, student loans, oops, are another type of personal loan that has a specific purchase required. Okay. Okay. So when you get a student loan, you must be using it for your education. Now, you do not only have to use it for the classes, though, it has to be something related to the education. Okay. So it can be to pay for your housing. It can be to pay for book fees or lab fees or anything like that. Okay. As long as it's relating to your education. Okay. Or if you had already paid for some of these things up front, like some of the schools require a certain amount of payment before the student loan has funded, you can have the student loan pay you back because you will have receipts to prove that you paid for these things related to your student loan. Okay. So you have to use them towards your education or expenses related to education. Okay. Glenn, what happened to you? Maybe your camera went forward and it went black. Okay. So student loans can be used to pay for any post-secondary education. That includes college or tech school. Okay. It doesn't only have to be a 4-year, it could be at Delta. It doesn't only have to be a regular college, it could be one of the tech colleges. Okay. Questions about that? Any questions about that? I have someone who has a private message that needs to be responded to, so please get that handled. All right. The student loans are to pay for post-secondary education expenses. We already just talked about this. Okay. Like tuition, housing, books, lab fees, etc. Okay. So it's not only the tuition. You can use it towards your housing. It doesn't have to be housing at the school either. You can be doing off-campus housing, okay, because you're living out of your normal home area. You can be doing off-campus housing, and you can still use a student loan towards helping fund that. Okay. So it pays for those expenses, and you do not have to pay anything back until you are done with the education. So they have it in a holding pattern. kind of thing, where you are, you get the loan, you go to school, and it's not until after you graduate that, and they actually give you a grace time after you graduate to like get yourself a real job and kind of stuff like that. And then they start asking you to start paying them back. Okay. Questions about that? Okay. So federal student loans are the largest source because they are guaranteed and have the best terms, which is interest rate. Now, what that guaranteed means is that you are borrowing money from a bank, but the bank is acting as a housing agent for these federal student loan monies. Okay. And what it means is that the government has guaranteed the bank that if for some reason you default on the loan, they will pay the bank back and you will owe the government directly. Okay. So that's what guaranteed means. It doesn't mean you're guaranteed money. It means that the federal government has guaranteed the bank that they'll get their money back. Well, keep in mind, if you owe the federal government money, they can take a lien on your house. If you owe the federal government money, they end up charging you lots and lots of penalties and interest and take your like tax refund money and things like that. So they have other ways to get money from you. So you don't want to be owing the government money if you can help it. Okay. So what is happening, and like I just said, the government is acting as co-signer, and we talked about co-signers before, and agrees to repay the lender if you default. What's default mean again? Default's the fancy word for what? We just talked about it. Don't pay. Yeah. And then we're going to put this in capitals, but they will come after you for the money. So be careful. We just talked about that. The government's not going to go ahead and pay it off for you and say, yay, you're okay. You don't have to pay anymore. Oh, no. Okay. Okay. Default is when you've done multiple months of no pay, not late pay, no pay. Okay. So that's default, is when it's several months of I'm not making a payment, I'm not making a payment, I'm not making a payment. Remember, these payments aren't happening until you've graduated from college, until you've had, I think they give a 6-month window after you graduate from college for you to get yourself a job even before they start charging you. Okay. Now, purpose of federal student loans is to encourage education beyond high school. Remember, secondary is high school. We talked about that before. Okay. Beyond high school. Because, usually more education leads to higher wages, higher paying job, right? And higher wages leads to more taxes the government can collect, and it's less likely you will need government support program. So the government's not necessarily just doing it to be the nice guy. They're doing it because A, if you go and get extra education, we are not, remember, I'm not talking about only four-year college. The tech programs do the same thing, okay? The UTI for mechanics, okay? Any kind of after high school training will end up getting that person a higher paying job than someone who didn't do it. Now, to start, is it possible to not do post-secondary and still make it big later or decent later? Yes, but it's a much longer, harder process. Okay, it's not impossible, but it's a much longer, harder process. So you want to be looking at, are there after high school programs that I'm interested in that I want to go do? Because by doing that extra, going to, I don't know if they have a plumbing college, but I do know UTI is the auto mechanics. I know Delta has some electrical engineering, electrician tech programs. There's the, like Carrington, which is the tech program college for the, I think it's vet tech and dental assistant and stuff like that. So there's the cosmetology colleges and stuff like that. These are all extra education beyond high school. These are all things that, yes, they cost money to do them, but in the long run, you will be making more money on the other side of the thing. And to help you with that, the government co-signs this loan for you so that they can encourage you to go get that education, go get that extra paying, because on the other side, if you're making more money, they get to collect more, and it's less likely you're going to need welfare or these other programs that cost them money. They get more and you cost them less. Okay, so they're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart, so to speak. They are doing it to help out, but it's not completely, oh, we want to give you a handout. Okay, they want to give you a hand up so you could be more than. Okay, so now there's two main types pardon me, of federal student loans. Okay, there's two main types of federal student loans. First one, federal Stafford loan. This is the most common. Okay. And in the federal Stafford loan, there are two types of these federal Stafford loans. Okay. The first type of federal Stafford loan is called subsidized. Let me make sure I spell it right. Subsidized. It's one of those weird looking words. Subsidized, which is needs based. So must show a certain level of financial need to qualify. Okay. With the subsidized, the interest doesn't, start building up, which is actually called accruing. That's the official financial word for it. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Accrue. Are you? Accruing, building up, until you graduate. So what that means is you borrow the money and it sits there. They don't start counting that you owe them interest until after you graduate. So maybe you got the loan in year 3 of college and it took you 6 years to finish. You get 3 years without interest even counting. They don't even count that you owe them interest until you finish college and graduate, or you finish the program and graduate, or you drop out, which means you still owe them the money. Okay. After leaving school, okay, you get a 6-month, what they call grace period, to get a job and get settled before they start requiring any payment. Talked about that. Okay. And I just realized I want these to go in actually one more. Sorry. Because we have another type of Stafford loan. We have another type of Stafford loan. So that's subsidized. Then there's another one called unsubsidized. Okay. The unsubsidized is not needs-based. Okay. So you can get an unsubsidized Stafford loan that's guaranteed by the federal government, even if your family has a decent amount of income, because unsubsidized is not linked to income, needs-based. But as a catch for that, interest accrues from the start of the loan. So they start counting that you owe interest, not making you pay it, but they start counting that you owe them interest. Okay. But you still have no payments until required, I should say, required until after graduate, okay, or leave school. Okay. Here's my capital letter one, my big thought. Pay payments on this type, even though you don't have to, while in college, if you can, because interest is adding up. And you do not want to help, you don't want to pay more than you have to. So, and I'm not saying full payments or anything even. Maybe you have an extra $50 a month. The loan payment might be $200 when you get out of college. But while you're in college, even paying that $50 a month or $20 a month or whatever, that little bit makes a difference in terms of how much you pay them in the long run. Okay? Back it up. Both of these types of loans have limits on the annual amount and total amount you can borrow. Okay, so it's not like you can have whatever, how much you want. They will go ahead and calculate, oh, your family's income is X or Y or whatever. Then you can have this much per year, this much total. Okay, they will have figured out a maximum for you that they will allow you to borrow. And they will break that up into the average number of years it should take you to finish. And that's your annual amount that you will get. Okay. Okay, remember I said that there were two types of federal programs? Here's the second one. Let me make sure I'm lined up correctly. 1 second. Nope, I have to go back one more. The second type of federal loan is called a federal Perkins loan. Okay. It is similar to the Stafford loan. Spell it. With lower interest rates and no payments until you graduate. Leave school. Okay. It's similar to the Stafford for that. But this is designed only for students coming from extreme poverty. Since the government, see if I spelled it right. Nope. Government knows that support from the family is financially not possible. Okay. Okay. So it is needs-based. And you would have to, your family and would have to provide financial documentation for you to be able to qualify for it. Okay. but it's even lower interest rate than the Stafford loan because of that. And you get a longer grace period after you graduate. Notice this one is after you graduate. You don't get the leave school part. After you graduate, before you have to start paying it back. Okay? So the Perkins loans is designed for the families that are in extra special, they extra need help. So you can have a student whose family is okay, not in poverty necessarily, but not wealthy either. Wealthy, they don't get student loans. Or actually, I should say, they could get the unsubsidized Stafford loan, but that's a higher interest and it's all this, it accrues and stuff like that. But you can have a student coming from a family that's an adequate life family, not necessarily poverty, not necessarily wealthy, and they would qualify for the Stafford subsidized probably, but not the and the Stafford unsubsidized, but not this. This is for the super, okay? So you can get both types though. You can be offered the Perkins and the Stafford subsidized and the Stafford unsubsidized. Keep in mind though, these are loans. You have to pay them back. You do not want to be taking out loans unless it's super critical. Okay, your first goal is always going to be try and find grants, try and find scholarships. Okay, and here's where the reality sets in. The reality of student loans. Some of the stuff I was just talking about. Both Stafford and Perkins are still loans and must be repaid on time to keep good credit. Okay? And you don't mess. Okay? Like I just said, only use loans as a last resort and only get loans for exactly what you need. Okay? Okay. I have seen more than once students that go, well, they offered me $12,000 in loans for this year. So I went ahead and got it all. Not thinking about the fact that's $12,000 they have to pay back. They only needed 6,000 or 8,000, but they took all 12. And then now that's extra they have to pay back. Now, it is perfectly fine to, like, what happens is at the beginning of the year, they have you sign paperwork saying you want the loan. Remember, only if you absolutely need it, sign that paperwork. But you sign the paperwork and say, yes, give me the loan. They send you the loan and maybe say for the first half of the year it's $6,000 they send. They send it to the school. The school pays for all their fees out of it. There's maybe say $3,000 or $4,000 still left. If you are living at home, they will, okay, I should say, there'll be say maybe there's $3,000 or $4,000 left of it. They will mail that back to you. If you do not need it for housing because you're living at home, send the money back. Use that money and pay it back right away. So your loan is only $2,000 or $3,000 instead of $6,000. Okay. It's too easy to the school gives me this money back out of my loan. That's my money. I'm going to go spend that money and forget that's money you have to pay back. Okay. That's the whole point of the federal loans, Glenn, is that because you have no credit history, you're fresh out of high school, the government is co-signing for you and giving you that benefit because you don't have credit history yet. That's the point of how the government, the federal loans work. Because they know you don't have a credit history necessarily, unless you've had a job and you know, some kids at 16, they get a job, they get themselves a little student credit card and they've been building history, but some don't. That's why the federal government does the co-signing for you. That's the whole point. But back to what I was saying. You go ahead and sign for the paperwork, but remember, use the loans as a last resort. As an absolutely, my scholarships didn't pay for everything. My grants I got didn't pay for everything. I don't have the money in the bank, so I'm going to have to take out a loan. Okay. Last resort. Okay. And then when there's extra left that the school mails you back, pay that back to the loan company so your loan stays small. Okay, so I'm going to put this in capital letters. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay, always, I'm doing capital letters, but it's not letting me. Always pay back any extra right away to the lender if the school doesn't need it all. Okay? Biggie, huge. I'll be explaining about scholarships and grants in a second. We have one more bullet on the loans and then we'll talk about that. Parents have the ability to borrow to help you fund college. Okay. There are federal loan programs for the parents, just like there are federal loan programs for the students. Okay. But the interest rates are higher because they're figuring that, oh, you have a job, you're a parent. The repayment dates are right away. And the loan maturity date is sooner. And they have to pay it back even if you don't graduate. So I don't recommend to parents to do that. I don't. But some parents think they're helping out and they do that. And then it ends up harming the family's finances because maybe your family didn't have that extra $150 that your parents are paying towards the loan to help you and stuff. So I highly discourage parents from doing that. And I've had some parents that did it and then the student dropped out of college. And $29,000 worth of loans were still due to the parent because it was in the parent's name, not the student's name. And that's a really big stressor, not a cool thing to do to your family. Okay. Now, someone had asked about this, and I'm going all the way back here with it. Capital letters again. Always try to get scholarships, even small ones, and grants first, because they are free money that is a gift, and you don't pay them back. Usually grants are from government entities. Scholarships could be from anything. So there are actually websites out there that pull all their scholarship and grant offers out there. So do you guys know that there's an organization called the Kiwanis and the Lions Club and all these civic organizations that are out there? They often do small scholarships where like the scholarship might be $250 or $300 or $500. Well, even if it seems like, well, that's not much, that $250 could be 2 of your books. That $300 could be 3 of your books, or could be a book and a fee, okay, and a lab fee or whatever. So one thing to realize in college, books are crazy expensive. My younger son said it was going to be $90 for an online access code to an electronic book at Delta for a class he's taking right now. And he went, I am not paying that. And he went in with a friend, and there were actually 3 of them, and they each paid $30, and they each have the same login. They share the login is what they do. And so when you get to college, there's crazy stuff like that. You get used books that are still $100. New books, $200, $300, especially for math and science books, crazy expensive. Okay, so grants are usually money offered from government agencies, and scholarships are from little organizations or some big ones. But if you do a Google search for college scholarships, remember, there's lots of them out there that go unclaimed every year. Many of them require you to do something like write an essay. Some might require you to prove income because they are income-based. There are some because you're female. There's some because you're Hispanic. There's some because you're Pacific Islander. There's some because there's all kinds of scholarships out there for different things. There's some because you're looking at the medical field, or you're looking at being a teacher, or you're looking at, so definitely do your searches for the grants and the scholarships, and bite the bullet and write all the essays and give them all the income information and try and get as much free money as you can. Okay, never take out a loan until you're absolutely exhausted every option. But like I said, millions of dollars in scholarships and grants go unclaimed every year. A lot of times because students say, oh, it's only $250, so it's only $500. Those ones are the big ones that go unclaimed. So those are the ones you want to be making sure you apply for, because there's fewer people willing to apply for them. So you're not competing against as big a pool of people as some of the bigger scholarships. Remember, when it's thousands of dollars, there's going to be a lot of people putting their name in for it. Literally, you can Google search scholarships for college, scholarships and grants for college, and there are websites that pull them all together. However, some of them try and charge you a fee, so don't use them. But you could use them for the link over to the other agency. So like maybe they pulled together and you saw one on their list for you are a female and you're looking at going into business. There is an organization for women entrepreneurs. So use the link that they have to get over directly to the people. Okay, but I do know that there are some scholarship and grant pooling websites that don't charge a fee. But it's worth it to write those essays, fill out the paperwork. You never know. And 10 $500 scholarships is still $5,000. And $5,000 is not cheap money. Okay. So turn those in, please. And let's talk about the assignment. Stop sharing. Turn those in, please. And